Welcome, everybody. It is Monday, June 8th. This is Brad Show Live. My name is Brad Bernstein, and we have a lot to talk about today, a lot of schmoozing. I got to answer a lot of immigration questions today. I have David Moreno here. He is our civil rights and litigation attorney at Spar & Bernstein to break down what's going on with the George Floyd criminal charges against the police officers. And of course, we always start off Brad Show Live with saying hello to the squad, the group that makes this whole entire thing happen. Let me say hello first to Latoya, his forever Peterson. And yes, it is June 8th. She's still with him. Joyce Henry, how are you? Lovey Lima Tango, squad up. Christy Bennett, Asila Enot, squad up. Sylvie Edward, Paulette Bryce Cameron, squad up. Family Violet Blackwood, Anita Nelson with a log question. This is what? Oh my God, Anita Nelson writing an encyclopedia to me. We'll get back to you in a little bit, Anita. Or should I just answer? She has a two-part question. Let me say hello to the group on YouTube and see what's going on YouTube over here. Alyssa Henry saying squat up, back it up. Ricky Rupan Thakador saying hi, Brad. How are you? Nice to see you again. Nice to see you all as well. I am doing wonderful. Tia Prasad, hi, hello. Tanisha Love, squat up. Marianne Morley saying hi, Uncle Brad. I missed you. It was only 2 days, Marion. I was here on Friday, wasn't I? Yes, it was only 2 days, but I missed everybody. I actually, on the weekends, I kind of feel like I'm missing something in my life. I was telling Jilly Bean, I was saying, maybe we should do Brad Show Live 7 days a week. She goes, what are you, crazy? I'll kill you. Because I kind of feel like I'm missing something over the weekend. I don't know. What do you guys think? Aziz, wait. Can I give my question here? Well, if you can't give your question here, I don't know where to give it. So give it right here. Give it to us, Aziz. Felina Abwell saying, hi, Brad. How are you? 29 Super C. Carlene. Welcome back, Brad. Squad up team. Love to listen to you. You are very informative. You are the best ever. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Carlene. With a pre-comment of the day. Hill 6060, because 160 is not enough. Saying hi, Uncle Brad. Good evening. And Princey Talipia saying hello, Brad. Let me just run back quickly here on Facebook. See who else we have here. Sophia Gray, Brahim Oak4, Yannick Sterlis with a question. Nezzy once more, and Carrietis. Let's do 3 questions before we get into our schmooze. Our first question, Anita Nelson. Hello, Uncle Brad. Please, I have 2 questions. I wonder if that covers, if you're going to take up 2 already, Anita. All right, let's see. My first question is, after our Stokes interview, it's a Stokes interview, it's been 4 months now, no decision, though the officer told us he could not make a decision. He will bring the case to the supervisor if there's a need for him to investigate. Please advise. That's never good when he's bringing the case to a supervisor. That means they don't believe it's a good marriage. So when the officer says he's bringing it to investigate, that's not good. Now, if you and your husband live together, and then by all means, come and investigate. We're having roast beef tonight. Tomorrow night's potluck. Everybody makes their own dinner. Wednesday night's pasta night at my house, whatever it is, come on over. You'll see me and my husband there every night. So as long as you and your husband together, who cares? Let him investigate. It just means it's going to take a lot longer. Now, another question for a friend. He went to the U.S. Embassy in his country in Africa for a visa in 2005. He was denied. And when he was about to go to college, he changed his name. After he graduated from college, he went back to USA Embassy again for his visa. And the officer asked him if he was denied the visa in 2005. He said yes. And the officer asked him why he changed his name. And he said for his own personal reasons. The officer told him to go and bring affidavits. It shows that he changed his name after he brought the affidavits. The officer granted him the visa. Great. So now the question is, will he have a problem if he's changing his status through marriage to a U.S. citizen? No. As long as his name change was legal, that's perfectly fine. Prince changed his name, and he didn't need any immigration. He didn't have any immigration problems. So your people, adults are allowed to change their name. People change their name all the time. Maybe I should change my name. Maybe I don't want to be Uncle Brad anymore. Maybe I want to be, Uncle Joe, Uncle Jim, Uncle Chucky. I don't know. Yeah, it doesn't sound as good, Uncle Chucky. Uncle Chucky sounds like I'm an evil, evil lawyer. Let's keep it at Uncle Brad. I like Uncle Brad the best. I am not going to change my name, but it's perfectly fine to change your name. Brahim Okafor with a quick question also says, hi, Brad, my I-751 is processed at the NBC, the National Broadcasting Company. No, not NBC, at the television station, the National Benefit Center. Do you know that's also NBC? Do you know what's the average processing time at that office? My case is pending since May 2019. They're taking almost 2 years now. So my guess is that you won't hear anything till the winter, probably at best. And Anita Nelson, I'm sorry, I'm yelling it out. The best show ever. Thank you very much, Anita. One last question before we get into our schmooze. The Unique Sterlis, and we'll answer all of your questions. I promise you. I promise you, we'll answer all the questions. One last question here says, hello, Brad. My question is, my 2-year green card will be expired next year in September. When is the best time to start the process for the 10-year, and do we need a lawyer? Unique, I say this all the time. All of the time. Okay? If you ask a lawyer if you need a lawyer, you are going to get the answer, yes, you need a lawyer. There will never be a time a lawyer says, no, you don't need a lawyer. But sometimes I actually tell people, you don't need me. You're perfectly fine. But to remove the conditions of your permanent residence, if you can afford to have a lawyer, even if you think you have the easiest case in the world, in this time and age with this pumpkin dude in the White House, you know, I will call him Pumpkin. I can call him a racist. I can call him a fascist. I can call him an orange guy. All the same. With this dude in the White House, you need a lawyer. You definitely need a lawyer. That's my opinion. But again, you're asking a lawyer if you need a lawyer. I got to remind everybody before we get into our schmooze, and I will be answering everybody's immigration questions. And don't forget, I have David Moreno, our civil rights and litigation attorney, coming up, and he's going to break down everything that's going on George Floyd case out in Minnesota. But in the meantime, if you have not subscribed on YouTube and you, like Anita Nelson, think this is the best show ever, why wouldn't you subscribe? I am sure Anita Nelson has both followed and liked us on Facebook and is subscribing on YouTube. And if you think this is the best show ever, like Anita Nelson on Facebook thinks this is the best show ever, subscribe on YouTube and like and follow us on Facebook. You got nothing to lose and all of the best information and all of the great new group of friends to gain by liking and following and subscribing on YouTube and liking and following on Facebook. Also, leave your immigration questions in our comments section, even during my schmooze. I will come back and answer them. If for whatever reason I don't answer it, ask again. If you have answered the question 3 times and we come to the end of the show, don't fret. Don't get mad. Don't get angry. Don't blow your top. All you got to do is follow me at Real Brad Bernstein on Instagram. If you follow me at Real Brad Bernstein on Instagram, and you can send me your question in a DM, and I'll try my best to answer it to the best of my ability. You can also follow us at Brad Show Live on Instagram. At Brad Show Live on Instagram, you'll see the best of Brad Bernstein and the Brad Show Live crew and all of the best segments of our show and behind the scenes when we actually get behind the scenes again. You could also find the Bouncing Brad. If you find Bouncing Brad at Brad Show Live and you tag 5 of your friends, you may be picked out of my hat this coming Wednesday in 2 days for a free consultation worth $200. And it's absolutely free. And all you got to do is find Bouncing Brad, like Bouncing Brad, tag 5 friends, and obviously follow us at Brad Show Live. And with that, let's get into something that we call here on June 8th. Got to make sure we got the date right. Schmoozing with Brad. So today marks the 14th day of protests taking place across the United States, around the world, surrounding the death of George Floyd. The more recent and peaceful demonstrations prompted authorities to lift curfews, thank God, in Chicago, Philadelphia, New York City, where I live, and Buffalo, New York. Over the weekend in Washington, D.C., huge crowds turned out and hundreds of people held a die-in near Lafayette Park where police had tear gassed protesters days before. Now, for those who don't know, nobody actually died at this die-in. Everybody is okay. They just pretend to die and they lie on the ground, but everybody is okay. Meanwhile, in New York City, tens of thousands of people marched across the Brooklyn Bridge on Saturday, and they later gathered in downtown Brooklyn where protesters broke curfew in order to march. The protests inspired Mayor de Blasio to make a dramatic policy reversal. As recently as Friday, de Blasio had expressed skepticism about cutting police funding, but by Sunday morning, he had changed his tune, and in the early morning, he announced on Twitter that New York City's curfew, first curfew since the end of World War II, would end effective immediately, and that he had also agreed to support a ban on the use of chokeholds by law enforcement, provided it includes an exemption for officers facing life-threatening situations. Now, that exemption, is going to be used by every police officer. I thought my life was in danger. That's why I had to choke the person. So, everybody is also taken with a grain of salt, very skeptical. Blasio also announced that he's going to defund some of the New York City Police Department, but everyone seems to be very skeptical that would actually ever happen. Meanwhile, we still have a racist orange dude in the White House, hopefully not for more than a few more months. Please, Joe Biden, don't say anything stupid. Please, all he has to do, this guy, Joe Biden, is not say anything stupid, all right? And he will be elected because the other guy's demented and he's a racist, and everyone knows he's demented. It's like Joe Biden versus a demented racist, and all he has to do is just show up and not say anything stupid, okay? People would vote in a bar of soap over this guy in the White House right now. So I'm just praying that Joe Biden doesn't say anything dumb to actually make this a race. But hopefully he won't. Well, in any event, the orange guy, AKA Donald Trump, AKA racist dude in the White House, and he's not a dude, a racist guy. He's actually a racist, a terrible guy. Announced Sunday that he's going to begin withdrawing the National Guard from Washington, D.C. after a weekend of peaceful protests. He tweeted, "I have just given an order for our National Guard to start the process of withdrawing from Washington, D.C. Now that everything is under perfect control, they will be going home, but can quickly return if needed." Far fewer protesters showed up last night than anticipated. But actually, in fact, orange guy, tens of thousands of protested peacefully throughout the country Saturday and Sunday, the largest crowd ever in the nation's capital. So we do not know what Trump was looking at when he said far fewer protesters, but in fact, it was all peaceful. The police chief in Washington, D.C. said there were 0 arrests made Saturday. The third day in a row, no arrests have been made in Washington, D.C. Thank God. Now, there was a big turmoil over whether Trump should bring in the military to quell the protesters, and some people wanted it. And besides the fact that you have your military turning on citizens who are peacefully protesting, the big deal with bringing in the military. So I'm thankful that the National Guard has stepped away and has withdrawn. Is that the U.S. military, for our entire history from 1776 all the way to the present time, has been apolitical. Apolitical meaning not taking a political side. Never takes a political side. Our military, the U.S. military, what makes, I think, America a great country, one of many things is out. And by the way, we have a lot to go, obviously, based on these protests. But our military doesn't take sides in politics. It's non-political. And as soon as you have the president of the United States calling the military to take a side, which is the side of people like Donald Trump, racists, white supremacists who want to end peaceful protesting of racism, once the military takes a side, you have now made the military a political tool of whoever is ordering the military to go up against the protesters, in this particular case, Donald Trump. and you have now made the military a political tool, which leads to fascism, which leads to the end of democracy. So I'm very happy that the military and our military leaders said they were not getting involved as well. Meanwhile, in Minneapolis, a veto-proof supermajority of the city council pledged their commitment to defund and dismantle the city's police force. Tweeted one council member, yes, we are going to dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department and replace it with a transformative new model of public safety. I do not know what that means. I don't get defund police. I don't get it, because we need police. Just because the police are racist and you get rid of the racist police doesn't mean there's no bad people in the world. There are bad people in this world still who need to ultimately be arrested at some point. And these bad people, they're white people, they're yellow people, they're green people. There's an orange guy in the White House who's a bad guy. They're black, they're brown, they're every color. I'm not saying that everybody, but there's a small group of them with bad people that need to be arrested. You need police. I don't know how you can not have police. So I don't get the defund police. I get the let's remake the police to what we want the police to look like. I get let's take away a lot of the military hardware that the police have. I get that when you give a police officer the authority to, without having any overview over that authority, well, you know, that could lead to corruption and racial arrests, and so you need to have an advocate or a group that oversees the police to make sure that they stay in line. Somebody has to police the police, which we don't have in the United States of America, to make sure that they stay in line. I think we need more training. There's a lot of things. I don't know about defunding. I personally, and you can tell me I'm wrong, but I'm not in favor of defunding, because I don't know who's going to arrest the bad people. There are still bad people in this world that need to be arrested, that we need to be protected from, that good people of the world need to be protected from. Meanwhile, in Seattle, I don't know if you saw this, it wasn't all very peaceful. A man drove into a Seattle crowd protesting the death in police custody of George Floyd before shooting one of the demonstrators on Sunday. We have video with audio about this. This is terrible.
Oh, God! No! No! Oh, God! Oh, Jesus! Oh, God!
So meanwhile, the shooter was detained. A 27-year-old man who was shot in the arm was taken to the hospital. He's going to live. We don't know who the shooter was yet, but I assume he was not a fan of the protesters, most likely some sort of bigoted, racist, terrorist, crazy person. We don't know. We'll find out. The family of George Floyd gathered on Saturday. They had a private funeral in North Carolina to honor his life. Mourners were led in invocations, prayer, and music. Ruby Floyd told the crowd, God is on our side. She is one of the family members. In Houston, Reverend Al Sharpton is expected to deliver the eulogy at the funeral service for Floyd, and Democratic presidential hopeful Joe Biden was planning, I don't know if he did or not, but was planning to meet privately with the Floyd family today. I don't know if you saw this, but former president nominee for the Republican Party, Mitt Romney, who he ran for president against Barack Obama in 2000 and did he run in 2008 or 2012? I forget. It's either 2008 or 2012. I believe 2008 he ran against Barack Obama, or 2012. Well, in any event, he ran as a Republican. He's a senator now from Utah. He marched with a group of Christian demonstrators in Washington, D.C. on Sunday evening, protesting the death of George Floyd. There he is, and videos posted on social media. Romney is seen wearing a mask as the faith-based protesters marched down Pennsylvania Avenue towards the White House. Romney had previously posted a statement on his Twitter account calling Floyd's killing abhorrent and emphasizing the importance of peaceful protests. Romney told NBC News, "We need a voice against racism. We need many voices against racism and against brutality, and we need to stand up and say Black Lives Matter." Now, can you imagine if this was not Romney, but the actual president of the United States of America would walk out of his White House and do what Romney did and walk with the protesters and say, we need a voice against racism? I, as the president of the United States, I am not the president of some people who voted for me. I'm the president of everybody, whether you voted for me or not. And as the president of everybody, whether you voted for me or not, we need a voice against racism. We need many voices against racism. I'm going to lead that voice against racism from the White House. And we need to stand up and say Black Lives Matter. Can you imagine if we had a president who said that? What a transformative moment this would be for not only people who live in the United States, but people around the world. That there was a moment in time this week that the president of the United States, Donald Trump, could have transformed the world. And he absolutely failed. You know, we have a Senator Romney doing it, but can you imagine if it was the president of the United States? What an absolute failure of leadership by Donald Trump. Meanwhile, 2 Buffalo police officers in New York, they are now facing criminal charges in connection with the graphic caught-on-video shove of this 75-year-old man during a protest. We have that video. There he is. Yeah, they shoved him, and he was bleeding out of his, look at that, bleeding out of his head. It was terrible. Now, officers Aaron Torgalski and Robert McCabe, they were charged with second-degree assault during their video arraignments on Saturday. Meanwhile, in Georgia, the father-son racist team of Gregory and Travis McMichael, who were arrested in the shooting death of Ahmaud Arbery, they were back in court. Each man faces murder and aggravated assault charges. Now, while many, including attorneys for Arbery, believe that the shooting was racially motivated, and it appears it was, because there's even testimony now that the son or the father, I forgot who, had called out the N-word after shooting Ahmaud. But they will not be charged with a hate crime in Georgia. And you want to know why they're not going to be charged with a hate crime in Georgia? Because there is no hate crimes on the statute books in Georgia. Georgia does not have a crime entitled hate crime. There are no hate crimes in Georgia. You can't commit a hate crime in Georgia. Georgia is actually one of only 4 states, South Carolina, Wyoming, Arkansas being the other 3, that have no hate crimes. Now, a hate crime is an offense like murder, arson, or vandalism with an added element of bias, according to the FBI, which prosecutes federal hate crimes. Arbery's killing has sparked new pressure for a state hate crime in Georgia. And all I got to say is, come on, Georgia. It's now 2020, and Georgia, which, by the way, Atlanta, with a very large black population, I don't know what of a middle-class black population in Atlanta. I don't know what the percentage is, but I know there's a very large middle-class black population in Atlanta. How does Georgia not have hate crime in 2020? Come on, Georgia, get your act together. So I got angry when I actually read that. So meanwhile, here's what's going on in New York City. More than 400,000 people returned to work on Monday in New York City. Phase 1 of the city's reopening is just beginning. More than 205,000 people were infected with coronavirus. We were all under quarantine and we were all under curfew. But now, at least phase 1. Whoops, I have my pen in my hand. Go back to me now. Phase 1, whatever that means. Well, we'll tell you what that means. So hundreds of thousands of workers. Phase 1 is construction jobs, manufacturing, retail stores. You can go to the front of the door and say, "Hey, I need a package of underwear. Can you bring it out?" And they'll bring out a package of underwear to you. Okay, but you can't walk into the store. You can only buy your underwear outside the store. So it's all curbside. Hey, I need 6 socks. 6 socks, please. And then they'll bring out 6 socks to you. So that's how the retail stores, I guess, are going to work until they allow people in phase 2. Whoop, I got my pen in my hand. Phase 2 into the actual store. Now, all of this is based on the fact that new infections are now down to only about 500 infections a day that are being registered in New York. So it's now low enough that New York City is hoping that their new core of contract tracers. So they're the people who find out Joe has coronavirus. Let's speak to Joe and let's get on the phone with Joe and find out everybody that Joe was in contact with. Then we got to call all of those people that Joe was in contact with and get them tested. And those people who test positive, we are going to quarantine. And that whole idea is that we have a low enough number now that we'll be able to trace everybody so that way the infection rate doesn't explode again. Now, the only hitch in all of this has been the protests. We don't know for another 2 to 3 weeks how the protests will affect the public health, which is how many people are getting coronavirus. I'm hoping that's not going to be the case. We'll see what happens. And meanwhile, I don't know if anybody knows who Alexis Ohanian is. He is the husband of Serena Williams, the tennis star. He is also white, and he is the co-founder of Reddit. And he has made an announcement on Friday, 3 days after former Reddit CEO Ellen Pao slammed the company for nurturing hate speech, that he is now resigning from the company's board of directors. Ohanian said Friday, "It is long overdue to do the right thing. I am doing this for me, my family, and my country. I'm saying this as a father who needs to be able to answer his black daughter when she asks, 'What did you do?' So I have resigned as a member of the Reddit board. I have urged them to fill my seat with a black candidate." Ohanian also pledged to donate the future gains on his Reddit stock to serve the black community and announced a $1 million donation to the Colin Kaepernick Know Your Rights camp. Now, the $1 million to Colin Kaepernick is amazing. But if you think about the future gains on his Reddit stock could be billions and billions of dollars. He is now pledging to donate what could potentially be billions and billions of dollars to serve the black community. So my hat is off to Alexis Ohanian. Now, obviously, there's a big debate on what's going on tech and social media. Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, he made waves when he hit a tweet from Trump amid the initial wave of George Floyd protests, proclaiming, "When the looting starts, the shooting starts." And he put the tag on Trump, which now Trump's not happy about. And meanwhile, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg, he's not doing anything on Facebook. So we'll see what happens. I don't know if anybody saw President Trump visited Maine on Friday and toured the Puritan Medical Products Facility. Now, he did not wear a mask, and this is the facility that makes the swabs. And there he is, not wearing a mask, while the guy next to him, if you go back to the other picture, the guy next to him is in a hazmat suit, which is what you should be wearing in this facility. Why is he in a hazmat suit? Because they're making the swabs that go up your nose to see if you have coronavirus. Nothing can be contaminated. Look, everybody else is in hazmat suits, and Donald Trump is sticking a swab in his mouth to pick out the cucumber between his teeth. So meanwhile, after his visit in Maine, everything that was manufactured for that day, they had to throw out because Trump, by walking around without a mask, without any hazmat suit, ruined all of those supplies. We need every last one of them. So, meanwhile, several cities have lifted the curfews, but leaders around the country, they express concern that demonstrators may lead to an increase in coronavirus. So I had mentioned before, but what I forgot to say is that a lot of our country's leadership in public health is urging people who did take part in protests to go get tested. In New York City, if you took part in a protest in New York City, the tests are free, and you can go to any city MD, and they'll do it absolutely for free for you. You should do it. And this was a nice thing before we end our schmooze. I don't know if you saw what happened in Nashville, Tennessee. 6 teenagers led a 10,000 person protest in Nashville against racism and police brutality on Thursday. It was the largest protest in recent history in Tennessee. Jade Fuller, Nia Collins, Z. Thomas, Kennedy Green, Emma Rose Smith, and Michaela Smith, ages 14 to 16 years old. They met on social media, and from there, they decided to put this protest together. Fuller, who was one of the teenagers who put it together, said, we all met on Twitter, and that's how easy it is to do something like this. That's what really opens people's eyes to what's been going on in our country. So soon after they met, they put this whole entire thing together. As one of the teens said in a speech, as teens, we are desensitized to death because we see videos of Black people being killed in broad daylight circulating on social media platforms. As teens, we feel we cannot make a difference in this world, but we must. Oh, I want to say this one other thing. This was also a beautiful story. I don't know if you saw in Philadelphia, the bride and groom who got married and then joined the protest right after they said, I do. So thousands of demonstrators, they took to the streets in Philadelphia Saturday. They were protesting the death of George Floyd. But these two people, the bride and groom, stood out. Kerry Ann and Michael Gordon, wearing their full wedding attire, joined protesters at City Hall after their wedding ceremony. Video shows the couple holding hands as the surrounding crowd chants Black Lives Matter. The newlyweds then raised their fists in a symbol of solidarity. Kerry Ann Gordon told ABC News, it ended up being a very powerful moment. Not only are we feeling the movement of the people, but I'm meeting my husband on our wedding day as a strong Black man and a good representative of who we are as people, what our men are like, what our culture is like. It was just a very, very empowering moment for us, considering all of this that's happening at one moment in one time. She also said that we will all see this injustice. We all want this needle to shift away from the status quo that made this day more memorable in many ways. And that is what is going on in the world. I do got to remind everybody to leave your immigration questions in our comment section. We'll be answering them in about 45 seconds or so. And I do have to remind everybody, if you are watching on Facebook, if you're watching on Facebook, I had a little fall there. If you're watching on Facebook, please like and follow us, and please start your watch parties right now. And if you're watching on YouTube, I would love for you to subscribe. Let's see how many thumbs up we have on YouTube so far. We have 90 people watching, 42 thumbs up. Please give us the thumbs up on YouTube. You could also share this to your friends and family. You can share on Twitter, Facebook, Blogger. You can make a copy of this and put it in an SMS message or on a WhatsApp message. Let's get our numbers up on YouTube. Only 90 people watching, and I'm giving all this great free information. And on Facebook, you can start a watch party. You can make comments. Even if you don't have a question, make a nice long comment. All right, because Facebook will see that people who make nice, informed, long comments, they're gonna push this out to more and more people. So I love the squad. I'd love to hear what you have to say, but more importantly, make your nice long comments, even if you don't have a question. And of course, don't forget about our Instagram free consultation contest. If you follow us at Real Brad Bernstein, you find the Bouncing Brad and tag 5 friends and like that post. And no, not follow us at Real Brad Bernstein, at Brad Show Live. My apologies. And like that post and follow us at Brad Show Live. You will be entered into my hat for a possibility of winning a free immigration consultation with me on Wednesday. And if you don't get your immigration questions answered, you can always just follow me on at Real Brad Bernstein and leave your question there. All right, let's get to some immigration questions and something we like to call, what do we call it? Quarantine immigration questions and answers. All right, so the first question comes from Damian Farquharson. Can a United States citizen with a domestic violence charge that was dismissed or dropped petition for a spouse? Absolutely. And even if it wasn't dismissed, the only way it would be a problem is if there was sexual abuse involved. If there was no sexual abuse involved, even if it wasn't dismissed, they would be able to do it. But thank God it was dismissed for that person. You don't want to have those charges against you. Cordella Douglas with a pre and post comment of the day. The best show ever in the hospital bed. You can get the best show. Cordella, be well, and please, we're praying for you every day, and we hope you are out soon. Marge Higgs with a comment, pre-comment of the day. In this climate, everybody needs a lawyer. And let's see what we have here. Any other? Yannick Sterlis. Brad still didn't get an answer. When should we start the process for removing the conditions? Oh, you happen to be right, Yannick Sterlis. I told you just need a lawyer. I didn't ask the second part. You have to file it 90 days before the end of the 2-year anniversary. So it has to be received by immigration within the 90-day period before the end of the 2-year anniversary. So you put it in the mail approximately 2.5 to 3 months before your card expires. You should start preparing for it a few months even before that as well, but it shouldn't go in the mail at least till 90 days before. Donia E. Hi, Brad. I filed an I-751. I also have a stamp on my passport to travel. Unfortunately, the officer took my green card because he stamped my passport. I can't have both. Now I need to apply for citizenship, and I don't have a copy of my green card. What should I do? You don't need a copy of your green card to apply for citizenship. The stamp in your passport should proof of your temporary permanent residence, and immigration knows you're a green card holder in your computer system. So just put down on the citizenship form your alien registration number and the day you got your conditional green card. That's all you need to do. Jackie Williams says, hi, I am new on your show. Welcome, Jackie. Welcome, Jackie. I have a question. I'm from Jamaica. I was given a waiver. I sent it in, and it's been 1 year and 4 months now. I haven't heard anything until now. That is a statement, Jackie, not a question, but you want to know, when will you get your waiver approved? It shouldn't take 1 year and 4 months. I think maybe you need to give us a call at some point, because if it's going now on 1 year and 4 months, it seems like a long time. Waivers are taking up to 1 year, but after 1 year, I think that's a little too much. I don't know why it hasn't been approved yet or why you haven't heard, but you can certainly have a consultation. You see the number scrolling on the bottom of our screen, and you can certainly call us. Tonya Gunny Christopher. Hi, my cousin came here from Canada without inspection. Her son is now 23 and was born here. Can he file for her? He can, but if she came from Canada without inspection, she's ineligible to adjust her status here unless she can get a parole in place because some of her family members are in the military or former military, or she's 245I. She would not be able to do a provisional waiver through her son. You can do a provisional waiver through a spouse or a parent. So at this moment, without knowing more, the answer is yes, he can petition. No, she won't get a green card. Let's see what else we have here. Amanda Smiley Love asking for a friend. I don't know why I love doing this today. Everything's in quotes for me today. But she's asking for a friend. Hi, Brad. I'm asking on behalf of a friend, and I'm here over 30 years, and he filed for his citizenship a few years ago and got denied because he didn't sign up for the selective service. He was asked to write a letter to appeal, and he did it twice, and still they didn't accept it. So he wants to know if he's eligible for citizenship and how does he go about it. He can do it now because it's more than 5 years since the time period. If he's here 30 years, as long as he's over 32 years old now, you have to show 5 years of good moral character. The time to apply for selective service ended at 26. So at over 31, age 31, and have a green card for 5 years, they can't go back more than 5 years and deny you for bad moral character for not doing selective service because It's past 5 years. So as long as he's over 31, 32 years old, he won't get denied this time. Let's go over to YouTube quickly and see what questions we have on YouTube. 6060, because 160 is just not enough, says, Uncle Brad, I'm asking a question for a friend. They got the I-512 and want to know if I can use a green card substitute to travel. You want to know if the stamp, I guess you're talking about the stamp in the passport, you can travel with that I-551 stamp. I guess that there's no I-512 stamp. 512 always makes me laugh because that was my suite number, 512. When I first started as a lawyer, we had one little office. I was suite 512, and now I'm on the 5th floor, 225 Broadway. Now we're whole 5th floor. So 512 is always a lucky number for me. But I-551 is the stamp on the passport. And yes, you can travel as long as it's valid. Let's see what else we have here. Tosh. Got a letter from USCIS to leave the country. Do you think I can still fly domestic without any issues? I'm not sure what you mean by to leave the country. You have a warrant out for your arrest. You got a letter from an immigration judge, or you just filed an immigration. You just filed some paperwork and it got denied, and they said leave the country, and you didn't, and it was never followed up with deportation. As long as it wasn't followed up with deportation, you travel. Nobody would know whether you got that letter or not. So the bigger concern is if it was from a judge, then you got ordered deported, then you got bigger problems. But otherwise, yeah, go travel. Keisha Ford, following up with some of the news, says the mayor of New York City stated that he will defund the New York Police Department. I'm all for demilitarized police force because they shouldn't be trained for combat when it comes to civilians. You're right, but we do need a police force. And 29 Super C, it was reported that Joe Biden visited George Floyd's family today to offer his condolences. Thank you very much. I love when the squad fills me in. Blessing Odin. Question for a friend, please. My friend is going to file for removal of conditions for his green card, but his U.S. citizen spouse gets food stamps. Is it going to be a problem? Not to remove the conditions. It will not be a problem to remove the conditions. Stel D. I'm a client of your company. The lawyer who started my case left. It's been 3 years and I've never moved. I'll appreciate, Brad, if you take a look at it. Well, Stel D, I told you what you can do is you can follow me. Even if you call my office and you say, I call the office, I can't reach Brad, blah, 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 blah. Fine. I tell you every day how you can talk to me directly. You can follow me at Real Brad Bernstein, drop me a DM, and I'm happy to look into it. I can't look into your case right now because I'm doing a live show. So I'm going to forget also. And I don't know who Stel D is. How would I know who Stel D is? I have no idea who you are. So drop me a DM on at Real Brad Bernstein or call my office and ask me to look into it. Okay, what else? Forever Blessed. If you applied for a social security number when you were a J-1 visa but recently married to a U.S. citizen and filed my adjustment of status, do I need to call Homeland Security to update my name? No, you do. You don't have to call. Why are you calling Homeland Security to update your name? You filed an adjustment with Homeland Security. You're talking about the social security number. When you get your work permit, Forever Blessed, you will get a work permit in your married name. Then you can go to Social Security and say, I have this social security number in my maiden name. I'd like to change it to my married name. Here's proof of my married name, my marriage certificate, and my work permit. And they'll change it over, I think, at that point. I think that's your question. Not 100% sure, but I believe that to be your question. Let's see what else we have here. Let's see. Forever Blessed. Rupan Takador. Hi, Brad. Is anyone can change his first and last name in a USA citizenship interview? Yes, they can. And if possible to change first and last name, is it any effect for the future? You can change your name to anything you want. So when you apply Rupan Takador, you can be Rupan Takador. You can say, you know what, my name is RT. You can be the artist formerly known as Rupan Takador. You can be Uncle Brad. You can be anybody you want. And it has no effect. You're allowed to change your name to anything you want when you do your citizenship. What do you think about traveling on advanced parole during this pandemic? Aries Baby says, If you can travel, by all means, travel. They'll be allowed back in. Marco Salinas, hello, Brad. My VAWA was approved in May 2020. My lawyer sent the I-45 in December 2018. I was married to a U.S. citizen. When should I expect the interview for a green card? You got to figure at least 9 or 10 months from May of 2020. And Miloslav Minkov with a question. Hi, Uncle Brad. Can you please advise when I go to my I-485 adjustment of status interview and for some reason I get denied, what could I do? What are my options? I don't know what your options are because I don't know why you were denied. I think your option would be to have a consultation with us. I think that's what I would do if I were you. Now, meanwhile, we have David Moreno backstage in his home to discuss the civil rights implications of protesting under George Floyd, as well as what's going on in the George Floyd case in Minnesota, in something we like to call something. What do we call this? The Brad Show Live Bat Light with the attorney insight. So I have with me Spar and Bernstein civil rights and litigation attorney David Moreno. He is back today to discuss the newest developments in the case of George Floyd's death while in police custody. We're also going to talk about what to do if you're arrested or injured by the authorities while you are protesting, what legal recourse you may have. Now, David, you came on last Monday to discuss the George Floyd case, and a lot has transpired since. First of all former officers have now been charged. Now let's discuss these charges. First, Derek Chauvin, the former officer who kept his knee on Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, including 2 minutes and 53 seconds of which Floyd was non-responsive. He was initially charged with a third-degree murder and manslaughter. The other former cops, Tao, J. Alexander Kung, and Thomas Lane, they had not been arrested, but last Wednesday, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison announced that Chauvin's charges had been upgraded to second-degree murder. And the other 3 former officers were charged with felony aiding and abetting. So let's talk, first of all, what is the difference between upgrading the case to second-degree murder from third-degree murder? And if you can also break down what is first-degree murder for us. And by the way, hello.
Hey,
Oh, wait, hello.
how you doing, Brad? Always a pleasure to see you. Nowadays is the only way I can see you. But there are a number of differences between third-degree murder, second-degree murder, and first-degree murder. The biggest difference is going to be the exposure of incarceration time. While they vary in different states, obviously first-degree murder in Minnesota, just like in New York, that carries a possible sentence of up to life in jail, whereas second-degree murder can carry a sentence of up to 40 years in Minnesota, and third-degree murder can carry a sentence of up to 25 years. When we're looking at first-degree murders under the law in Minnesota, we're looking at
the difference is 30 years of life between second and first.
Correct. Are you
Is that correct?
Say that again. I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So the difference between second degree and first degree murder is the difference between 30 years in jail and life in jail.
Up to 40 of years in jail and life. 40 years.
Now,
not 30.
that's 40. If he's sentenced to 40 years and it's just second degree, he's 40 something. He would get out when he's 80 something, or he would get out before.
He would probably be eligible for parole prior to that. If he's a model prisoner, right, he'll get out. He can start seeing the parole board about 85% of the way through his sentence.
Do you think they'll get to first degree murder? You're a former DA.
Yeah,
You're a former DA. You used to do this.
Yeah, I did. I didn't used to do this, but
I mean, you didn't do the big, the biggest, civil rights violation in American history, which this is turning out to be.
I would hope not. I mean, we wouldn't be sitting here if I was that kind of person, right?
Yeah, but you used to prosecute people all the time and decide what,
what's appropriate to charge. I think.
Yeah, what, you think he's going to be?
It's going to be difficult to get the first degree murder charge for a number of reasons. In the state of Minnesota, the main, you asked the question earlier, what's the difference between first degree and second degree? The main difference in first and second degree in Minnesota in terms of murder is going to be premeditation. It's an unlawful killing that's both willful and premeditated.
Now,
Whereas
let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this. I don't mean to interrupt you. Okay. I'm sorry. Go tell me what second is. I interrupted you. My apologies.
second degree murder is not premeditated, but it's intentional, right? And that's going to be the main deciding factor there. Go ahead, ask your question, brother.
Well, the difference between premeditated and intentional would be what in the law?
Under the law, premeditation doesn't necessarily contemplate, the way most lay people would think about it, that I'm this angry person in my house writing down a kill list and I'm writing down all of the different ways that I'm going to kill them. Under the law, something can be determined to be premeditated in terms of, intent can be determined right at the scene of the crime. Premeditated would require some level of intent to go out and kill that person that day.
So to get first degree murder, you would have to show that this cop on his way over, or when he saw George Floyd, before he even touched George Floyd, that's George Floyd, I'm going to kill him.
Yes. To make it simple.
It wouldn't have to be what if he's on his neck and he hears him choking and he says, you know what, I'm going to put a little more pressure on, I'm going to kill him.
Yeah, that's a change. That's a change in intent. That would be probably a little bit in the gray area under the law, but I would argue that it's probably not premeditated. That's one of the main reasons why the defense attorneys, why the family's attorneys in this case, Ben Crump and Lee Merritt, are concerned with the pre-existing relationship that Officer Chauvin and the deceased George Floyd may have had at their former workplace where they overlapped. Now
let me give you these facts. Floyd and Chauvin, you're right. They worked at the same nightclub in Minneapolis. They overlapped. Their work overlapped. We don't know whether they know each other or not. Now, Maya Santa Maria owned the El Nuevo Rodeo Club in Minneapolis on the South Side until selling it months ago, and confirmed on the news that they both worked security at the establishment. Now, Chauvin was the club's off-duty officer for nearly 17 years. Floyd worked there for roughly a year in 2019. Santa Maria, he was the former owner, told ABC she does not know if two of them ever spoke, but they were in the same club working, okay? Because Chauvin worked outside, Floyd worked the inside, but they're still at the same club working. She said if the two men had crossed paths during their time at the nightclub, it would probably not have been something they remembered, because there were often several dozen people working security on popular music nights. Now, Santa Maria also said Chauvin sometimes had a real short fuse. He seemed afraid when there was an altercation. He always resorted to pulling out mace and pepper spray, everybody in sight, as soon as there was an altercation that was started. What does that add to your analysis?
Well, I think Miss Santa Maria she's guessing a little bit whether or not they actually interacted, right? Brad, you and I obviously work in the same building, right? I don't know whether or not you know the security guard downstairs. I'd probably bet that you know him by his name, right? We all do. We all have different levels of relationship with it. I mean, if I'm not down there with you, I can't say whether or not you have that relationship. What is interesting, though, is the characterization that Officer Chauvin had a short fuse or a short temper, while at a job at a nightclub, right? You would assume that someone who was a training officer in the Minneapolis Police Department that had close to 2 decades of on-the-job training would be able to handle situations at a secondary job nightclub without escalating things or showing a temper, right? Even as a layperson, most security guards, are able to manage the environment that they're working in. So I do think that that's a relevant point, and that is something that if this case were to go to trial, the prosecutor could look into bringing that in as what you call Sandoval evidence. Sandoval evidence at a trial is going to be a pretrial hearing to determine whether or not prior bad acts, not necessarily things that led to criminal convictions, but anything bad that you did, the defendant, if those things would be relevant to this case. I would argue, as the prosecutor, that his intent, his motive, and his common scheme, what he does when he's provoked or belittled, all of those things would be relevant to the state of mind that Officer Chauvin had while his knee was on the neck of George Floyd for 8 minutes and 43 seconds. I would use that argument to show that his intention there was a nefarious one based on his prior bad acts. Now, obviously, we can't use prior bad acts to prove just because you did something bad in the past doesn't mean you did something bad here. But you can use it under the law to show a common scheme, or actually, what his intent may have been based on what his intent has been in the past under similar situations.
All right. So, what would you bet? First degree or second degree? It's going to stand.
If I was a betting man, I'd probably say second degree here. Just watching how everything played out. Obviously, a knee to a neck is a very dangerous way to subdue someone, especially for that amount of time. But if I'm looking at things objectively, obviously taking my emotion and how I feel about the situation out, I'm looking at things objectively. As a defense attorney, I would be trying to make a distinction between a knee to a neck, which could result in the death of someone, versus, maybe taking a gun and putting it in someone's head, which is, more likely to, cause someone to expire. Right. So based on that analysis, I'd probably say it's going to fall on second degree. I understand why people are calling for first degree. Obviously, folks are looking at it. You took this person's life. You should face the harshest penalty the law allows.
Now let's talk about the other cops, the three that were standing around. Actually, they weren't standing around. Two were holding him down. One was holding down his legs. One was holding down his back area. Now they are being charged as aiding and abetting a second degree murder. What is aiding and abetting a second degree murder?
Yeah. So
what's the difference between aiding, abetting, and in terms of sentencing, and you did the murder?
Yeah. Well, in terms of sentencing, if you aid and abet, you're going to be sentenced and exposed to the same amount of time as you would if you were the principal. Right. So when you aid or abet, you are the second or third person in the situation. Like, let's take this situation here. In this situation, Officer Chauvin is the principal. Officers Lane and what's the other guy's name, Brad?
Kong and Lane.
Chung and Lane and Tao would be the folks that they're accusing of aiding and abetting.
Kong and Lane were down, and Tao was on lookout. Tao was on lookout. Correct.
So under the law, they would be subject to the same exact exposure as the principal, Officer Chauvin. So the definition of aiding and abetting legally is to intentionally aid, advise, hire, counsel, conspire, or otherwise procure the other to commit the crime. So
they're looking at the same time.
Looking at the same time, and under the law in this situation, the prosecutor is going to argue that they actually intentionally aided in the commission of the crime, right? And they all did it from different perspectives. The two officers that were holding him down, and then the third officer that stopped, the emergency personnel that came and identified herself, that could have administered some type of aid, that stopped the bystanders, that ignored the cries of the actual deceased George Floyd. So under those theories, it's going to be argued that they intentionally aided in the admission of the crime there.
Now, Friday was the former officer's first appearance in court, and the lawyers for Kung and Lane, those were the two who were holding him down, said that their clients tried to stop Chauvin from kneeling on Floyd's neck, but were ignored. Now, I didn't see any of that on any tape. I didn't see anybody try to stop anybody. But do you think this argument holds any water?
If it were true, it might. I think we've all seen the tape. I think that's the overstatement of the year that they tried to stop Officer Chauvin. I watched the same tape that you watched, Brad, and the rest of the world. I didn't once see either one of those officers get up prior to Chauvin getting up, or try to remove Chauvin from on top of Mr. Floyd. The only thing that the record shows, that the video shows, is that at one point Officer Lane said, "Should we turn him over?" That doesn't mean should we turn him over and should we take pressure off his neck. It just means should we turn him over? To which Officer Chauvin responded no. And at another point, the other officer, Chung, actually said, I don't think we have a pulse. Again, that's a passive statement versus an active statement where it's An active statement, Brad, is stop, get off him, you're killing him, get off him. Those are active statements. A passive statement is, should we roll him over? I don't think we have a pulse. I don't think we have a pulse, actually, to me, makes it worse, right? Because you're acknowledging this man doesn't have a pulse, but you're still maintaining the same behavior that caused that to happen.
Now, the attorneys also told the judge that on the day of Floyd's killing, Kung, who was 26, he was working his third shift as a full-time officer. So his third day in the field. And Lane, who was 37, he was working his fourth day in the field. So two of these guys were on the job less than a week. Now, Chauvin, he was the 19-year vet who was designated to train these officers. Do you think the fact that they were new to the force, Chauvin had 19 years experience, he was supposed to be training them, is that going to have any bearing on Kung and Lane's case?
Their attorneys are trying to make it have a bearing, right? They're looking at it from a power dynamic argument side, right? They're essentially trying to say that these two were novice officers that were simply following orders of the commanding officer, and that they felt that there was nothing they could have done to go against that commanding officer. I don't care if you have 1 day or 1,000,000 days on the force. Guess what? You go through the same exact police academy that Officer Chauvin went through, and from the 20 some odd years, the 30 some odd years that they've been on this earth, that what they were doing was actually wrong. So besides having some type of heightened training, they also are humans that know that killing someone is inherently a wrong thing to do.
You're right. You're right.
So
now, what was their duty to intervene as two basically trainees? I mean, because you heard the bystanders saying, "Dude, get off him." Yep. Now the bystanders can't go and rush the cop and tackle him, but they're all yelling, "Get off him, get off him, get off him." Maybe they should have, okay? But they're yelling, "Get off him, get off him, get off him." Mm-hmm. What was the duty to intervene of these officers who were being trained? Do they have a duty to intervene? They should have.
In Minnesota, they do not. So really? Historically, they actually enacted a law back in 2016 that they would have a duty to intervene to stop another employee when they are witnessing force being inappropriately applied or being applied for longer than is necessary. However, that law is no longer in effect. That policy is no longer in effect. There are several other states that do have duty to intervene in policies. I do think what we're going to see as a result of what happened is a lot of police departments across the country would shift to that more high and transparent level of accountability.
That would help them in their criminal case if they don't have a duty to intervene, and their supervising officer is saying they're doing the right thing. You know, their position, not as a human being, because as a human being, the right thing is get off the guy's neck. But as in terms of job duties of a cop, if they don't have a duty to intervene and their supervisor is saying, do this, they're saying we were just sheep.
Yeah. Well, so under the police manual, there is a duty, but it's not enforceable in court. So when I say it's not required under the law. So it's not something that you can be held criminally liable for not taking an action for. Now, under the police handbook, there is a duty to intervene, but the only quote unquote tribunal in that situation would be their actual job, which we know they already lost. So that's why I'm saying in Minnesota, there is actually no law on the books or in the penal code that requires a duty to intervene. But yes, I do agree with you. It would make the arguments a lot stronger if, obviously under the law, they're not required to do it. But in the police manual, it does require that they do stop and take action when they see their comrades doing things that, shouldn't be done.
Well, of course. Now, you're a former Manhattan Assistant District Attorney. Duty to intervene exists in New York City. Do you think it works well in New York City as a policy? Do you think it works well in practice?
I would love to say that it does. Unfortunately, I'm not going to disparage my old office or any of the great cops that we have in some of these cities, but there is quote unquote mob mentality a lot of times in police departments. Even if folks would like to intervene, they have been systemically subject to harassment, bullying, and scare tactics within the department, those that go against sort of the grain or against one of their brothers or against the shield. So it does make it tremendously, that makes it tremendously difficult for them to actually go out and do that. In the Manhattan DA's office, I do know that there are specific measures set up so that police officers can do that sort of thing reporting wise and be protected from scrutiny in terms of other officers knowing. But that's what happens after the fact. If they were to take action during, the commission of this, there may be some blowback. I mean, a great example of this, Brad, is what we saw in Buffalo, right? And I don't know if we're going to get to that later, but we saw that video where the emergency response team is marching down the street like the stormtroopers. There's a 75-year-old man, and one of them shoves him down, and the rest of them keep it moving as if nothing happened, right? That officer gets put on leave, and guess what the other 57 officers do? In solidarity to the guy put on leave, they all decide to quit. I mean, if that doesn't tell you where the mindset is of the systemic mob mentality, then I don't know what does. And obviously every department is different, and big state departments and city departments are going to be different than your local villages. Maybe at some, small town on Long Island or in Westchester, when there's 20 cops, they might be able to hold each other a little bit more accountable. But when you got a police force in NYPD that's over 20,000, it's a little bit more difficult.
Yeah, we're going to get to all of that tomorrow because we're going to invite you back to talk more. But before you leave, I have one last, question because this has been on my mind. Now, there's two autopsies. Mm-hmm. Two autopsies were released on Monday, and both agreed that last week, about a week ago, both agreed that George Floyd's death was a homicide, but they differed over the specific cause of the death, and they also differed whether there were contributing factors beyond Chauvin kneeling on his neck. One of the autopsies said he was high on drugs. He had alcohol in his system. He had underlying health conditions. The other one didn't mention any of that. Would this have a bearing on this case, the two conflicting autopsies? And which autopsy is going to be brought into the courtroom? Both.
It's just like when we're dealing with a personal injury case and we have our expert doctor, and an insurance company has their expert doctor, and it's basically up to the advocates on both sides to show which doctor should be credited based on their training, their experience, and whether what they're saying is credible and what the evidence support, in terms of what the evidence supports. The one thing I will say is that the homicide being on the autopsy report has no bearing because that's a legal conclusion, right? That's not for the ME to determine. What they can determine, though, is whether or not, and I think the main thing that jurors are going to be highlighted or told to focus on is what the cause of death was, whether it was asphyxiation, which we know is some sort of blockage of the throat or the breathing tubes, whether that is the thing that primarily caused the death, or whether it's going to be outweighed by all of the other underlying medical problems that they're now saying that Mr. Floyd had. And, we know in the first medical report, the first autopsy, they're alleging that there was some sort of substances in the system. I can tell you, obviously from looking at someone, you can't tell whether or not they had a bill of health, but Mr. Floyd was a, former athlete, strong, big gentleman. I doubt that, there was something going on that just caused him to die there besides, a grown man, over 160 pounds applying, probably twice that amount of pressure on, someone's neck was the reason for his death. But yeah, I think it's going to be based really on, who those coroners are and how they present their actual arguments and what support they have for it. But they both absolutely will be part of the trial.
Well, I appreciate your time, David. I'm going to have you come back tomorrow if you have time, because I want to discuss. We didn't get a chance because there's so much to talk about here.
I just want to discuss, man. I never get to see you. I never get to Brad Squad.
just to see me on the show, right? Yeah. But we do work together. But because we're not allowed back in our office yet. But I'd love to have you back tomorrow if you can, because I want to talk about the protests and the excessive force by the police with the rubber bullets and the tackling, the guy who got pushed in Buffalo. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. That's a big human rights violation. I'd love to talk about that.
Yeah,
I'm incensed about that.
So I'd love to have you come back tomorrow to talk about that, and hopefully you'll have that time. In the meantime, for anybody who needs an amazing civil rights attorney, criminal defense attorney, amazing federal litigator, you got your guy right here, David Moreno at Spar and Bernstein. They don't come better than him. And the telephone number to call him, it's the same number you see scrolling down where it says call Brad. You can just cross out Brad and say call David, the same telephone number, 1-800-529-5465. And David, I really appreciate you coming on and look forward to speaking with you more tomorrow. It's the only time we ever hang out now.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you, brother. Namaste. Thank you.
All right, thanks for coming on. All right, so that was David Moreno from Spar and Bernstein. Amazing attorney, and he's a great guy too. So not only is he a great lawyer, but a great man as well. So let's go back to our immigration questions here and finish up and see what we have going on as far as immigration. I got to get my Facebook back up here 1 second, and here we are. All right, so let's go back to Facebook and see what's going on. Amanda Smiley Love with a quick question, not so quick. Hi, Brad. I'm asking on behalf of a friend. He's here over 30 years, and he filed for his citizenship a few years ago and got denied because he didn't sign. Oh, the selective service. We answered that right before. Let's see. Buxine Odindo. Hey, Brad. My question is, I'm waiting for my interview to be scheduled. USCIS has sent me a courtesy letter for a medical test. What does that mean? Should I wait until I get my interview date appointment to go to the medical, or should I go ahead and do it now? Don't do it now. Wait to do it when you get your interview. You can go take a medical. They'll give you the results in a day or two, because if you do it now, it may be too early and it may expire. So you do it about a week or so before your interview. So hold on to that. The courtesy letter is you'll have to do that in the future. Let's see what else we have here. A lot of biceps in the comments today. A lot of biceps. Damon Farquharson, I answered your question. Can a U.S. citizen spouse with a domestic go back and rewind? The answer is yes. Sam Millward with a question. Can a UK citizen burn an American woman while coronavirus is ongoing? Bum? Can a UK citizen bum an American woman? I don't know what you mean by bum an American woman. At first I said burn. I'm like, oh my God, what are you talking about, Sam Millward? Can you bum an American woman while coronavirus is ongoing? I don't know. Somebody tell me what bum. Does it mean have sex with them? You're asking the wrong person. Lorna Kerr with a question. Hi, Uncle Brad. How long does an appeal take? His case was denied because he was unable to get anything done without his social. They asked for RFE. He provided those, but was denied. They said they believe he married for a green card. His wife filed an appeal based on error since October. No, they did a motion to reopen probably. Don't bother with the motion to reopen. They take 2 to 3 years. So you just refile again and just get it right. Get it done right. Come see me. Dane Grizzle, if you're married and you're filing, how long does it take to get through? If you're filing an adjustment, hopefully about 12 months or so. Abby Annotated Styles. I think that's your name. Abby Anointed Styles. Boy, I can't read. I have to start wearing glasses so I don't look this all day long, but I hate myself in glasses. So I'm forcing myself not to wear glasses, but I may end up having to get glasses. I can't read anymore. Abby Annotated Styles. Can my fiance get a tourist visa while waiting for K1 visa from Nigeria? I doubt it. It's almost 100% they won't give it. Jack Walsgrove. Brad, I'm a Jamaican man. If I came in via boat, can I sue a local store after they raped me despite no citizenship? If I come in via boat, can I still sue a local store if they raped me despite no citizenship? That's awful, Jack. I don't know who raped you in a local store, but you can sue anybody regardless of what I hope I'm not reading that right. I hope I'm reading something different, but you can, regardless of your immigration status, we have lots of clients who have no status, and you have the right to get your day in court, regardless of what your status is. Nicole Rogers, my friend and her boyfriend getting married in July. How long after can her boyfriend file her papers? The next day. You don't have to wait. File the next day. Jack Walsgrove wants to know if I need a hair transplant. I need one. Thank you very much. Therese Hodge Campbell. I guess he's now just making some stupid comments. Umar Koch. Hi, Brad. Can I change the EAD category from C31 to C9? I filed the VAWA 6 months ago, and they put me under C31. If you file an I-45, you can also file the C9 EAD. And let's see what else. Buxton Ondindo. Hey, Brad, my question is, I'm waiting for interview appointment date to be scheduled. The USCIS has sent me a medical test courtesy letter. What does that mean? No, wait. You have to wait until you get your interview. Damian Farkerson. My sister is Jamaican and is married to a U.S. citizen that's currently in the U.S. that keeps threatening her and is being very abusive to her. Would she qualify under VAWA even though she's never been to the United States? If you're married to a United States citizen, you can qualify for VAWA. There could be extreme emotional abuse over a telephone. It could happen. It could absolutely happen. Abu Dun Jimo. If someone who has an approved F4 category and presently in the United States eligible for adjustment, only if they're 245I eligible or in legal status. Charles Teanga. I have an international student nursing grad. I have a 1-year optional practical training. What's my option for getting a green card? Get sponsored as a nurse. You have to go take your NCLEX. You got to go take your TOEFL and then go to the cgfns.org and get a visa screen. And then it's an easy sponsorship for a green card. Let's see what else we have here. Sashay Kens with a question. Hi, Brad. Good day. Quick question. We retained you don't understand how it goes. We have an entire team of people who help you. If you're having a problem, Sashay, give me a call. Jackie Williams. Hi, Uncle Brad. Before, I don't know if it was read. I'm in Jamaica. I denied my immigrant visa, so I was given a waiver. It's been 1 year and 4 months now, and I haven't heard anything until now. What should I do? Call me. And as far as Sasha Kens, you're hiring my law firm. I have attorneys who help me and assist me. And if you have any particular issue with your particular case, then give us a call, and I'll be happy to intervene. Let's see what else. Kostani Latif. A quick question. My asylum decision has been pending 11 months, no decision. What next step? You went on an interview and it's been 11 months. Give me a call. Let's see if you have a good case. Let's force them to make a decision. It's called a mandamus. Tanang Candine with a question. Hi, Brad. I have a pending asylum. I'm filing for adjustment of status through a marriage. Should I withdraw my asylum case? Am I safe to travel with advanced parole? You should withdraw your asylum case, because if you don't withdraw your asylum, you can't get your green card through marriage. I don't know if it's safe to travel with advanced parole, because if you're traveling back to the country that you claimed asylum, then you lied on your asylum case, because here, why are you in this country? You're supposed to be scared to go there. So before you travel, I would suggest you give me a call. Kaji B says, hi, Brad. I have my ITIN and I worked all of 2019 and received my W-2. We combined our incomes, filed a joint tax return for 2019. It's been over 2 months and still no federal returns. I don't understand the question. Hi, Brad. I have my ITIN and I worked all of 2019 and I received my W-2. Okay. We combined our incomes, filed a joint tax return for 2019. Good. It's now over 2 months and no federal returns. You cannot get a refund. You can't get a refund on your tax return with an ITIN number. So what will happen is when you get your work permit and social security number, you can then go correct your tax return. And then at that point, give them your social security number. And at that point, they'll give you your refund. Luigi Main with a last question. Hi, Brad. I'm a citizen who wants to file for my father who is presently here with me. Can you be of service? I absolutely can. You can call me at the number below, 1-800-529-5465. And if you did not get your immigration questions answered, you can always follow me at Real Brad Bernstein. Drop me a DM. Happy to answer. It's my personal Instagram page. I'll be happy to answer you to the best of my ability. You can also follow us at Bradshaw Live. If you follow us at Bradshaw Live, find the Bouncing Brad. You can tag 5 friends on Bouncing Brad, and you can be entered into our contest to win a free consultation with me. If you liked our show and you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to our show. Please subscribe to our channel, and you will get notified every time we come live on the air. And if you are watching on Facebook, you know what to do. Like and follow us. And finally, we have some comments of the day. What are our comments of the day? Carlene, welcome back, Brad Squad. Up team, love to listen to you. You're very informative. You're the best ever. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. Rondon, Mr. Brad, you are the guru of all lawyers. Thank you. Lisa Bling Rose, yes, Uncle Brad, please let Joe Biden call you for some advice. Yes, just be quiet, Joe. And also Lisa Bling Rose, okay, we're one big family, squad up. Let me tell you about Uncle Brad. He's the best of the best immigration lawyer. So tell a friend to tell a friend. I have to tell you, Lisa Bling Rose, I don't think in the history of Bradshaw Live we ever gave 2 comments in a day to the same person. Congratulations. And with that, I will say to everybody, be safe, be well. We will see you all tomorrow. Thanks for watching.